Hello YouTube, I'm currently at 2340, which is around top 3000 in the world. I'm going to be going over how I managed to beat some of the most difficult matchups for 2.6 and sort of explain my thought process and why I'm doing what I'm doing. The matchups I'm going to be covering are SplashYard times 2, Giant Graveyard, and Hog EQ. Without further ado, let's get right into it. So, starting us off, we're playing against a Cannoneer SplashYard deck, which is honestly just about one of the worst matchups I can think of. And that, combined with the fact that he got an early King Tower activation onto my Hog Rider, yeah, this kind of just spells disaster. It's a really tough matchup, but I'm going to tell you guys, what I was thinking. So at this point, I'm thinking, okay, it could maybe be Golem, but when I see the Bomber and I see, Bar Barrel and stuff, I'm like, okay, I know this is SplashYard. High Musketeer I play so it's outside of poison range. I managed to catch his Bar Barrel, which is important, and I go for a high cannon, honestly, just to block the bridge. I didn't want that baby dragon to cross the bridge because I knew he was going to go in for a graveyard. I tried going for a Hog Rider hoping he'd be low on Elixir, but he manages to defend with no damage. We take a little bit and he goes Evo Bomber at the bridge. I mean, this card needs enough, but yeah, he gets a ridiculous amount of early damage. But the one thing that I do here that one essentially wins me the game is this. I go for a Hog Rider in that same placement you do to counter Bandit with Skeletons, and that gets me King Tower, which is amazing. He goes for a Tombstone, which I love. But the King Tower against Graveyard is, this game gets really close, and that's really what won me this game. So we're waiting at this point, and he goes for a Knight in the back, and so I'm thinking, okay, I already know I have to go opposite lane. You cannot go same lane against any Graveyard deck, let alone SplashYard. So I set up a defense, I first pre-place my cannon, and then I go for Musketeer. And I'm like, okay, I managed to get a baby dragon, a poison, and a knight out, so that means, I was down some elixir, but now we're in a better spot elixir-wise, that I can start trying to apply pressure in the opposite lane. He's still one card from Tombstone, but he gets back to it. I go Ice Golem Hog, and I log his Tombstone. I Spirit the Bar Barrel, and I force out both his Tombstone and his Nado. Those are the two cards you need to be keeping track of the entire time, because he goes in and I let the Bomber lock onto my cannon. I then use my Evo Skeleton so the Bomber doesn't kill it. I log the Graveyard and help the King Tower helps out, and I take very little damage, but at the same time I had gone Ice Golem Hog opposite lane. Right, I had to go really aggressive to just try and get some damage, and thankfully it worked out. We're still down like 600, which is still really bad. But we're in a better spot. I go for a Hog Rider in the back, just thinking maybe I can try and outcycle him. Musketeer again on defense. I am giving him poison value because if I don't give him poison value, if I play my Musketeer up high, he's just going to Bomber snipe it and Bar Barrel snipe it and, Baby Dragon at the bridge, so it's kind of hard to protect. We don't manage to outcycle his two cards, so really the Hog in the back didn't really work out. But again, I'm trying to just be as aggressive as possible and defend as cheaply as possible. So I go in here, I log his... I do not log the Tombstone, I focus on the defense. So cannon onto his Knight, and I go for a Musketeer, and I can tank some damage on the left. It's not... You're not trying to be too aggressive in your defense and overcommit. So I let him get the poison, I let him get all that damage on the left, but it really doesn't matter. I again Ice Golem Hog. Ice Golem Hog to force out the Tombstone. If I only go for a Hog Rider, he's just going to Tornado it every time. He goes in, and I just go Evo Skeletons plus Cannon, fully cleans this up. Especially with King Tower, I should have, I should really not be taking any damage. I go for a Fireball because at this point I'm like, getting Hog damage is going to be really hard. I should only be going for Hogs to apply pressure, to force out Elixir, but not really because I'm expecting damage. We're going to be in triple Elixir now, and getting damage is going to be almost impossible with Hog Riders, but I still go for it. He goes in for this really kind of bad Graveyard. I managed to get a Hog hit, which is huge. That was a really clutch Hog hit. And so I'm going in again. I'm going in so that I'm not allowing him to just naked Poison Cycle or naked Graveyard onto my tower. Just the more pressure I can apply, the better. Again, I'm just Ice Golem Hog. Musketeer at the bridge because whilst I'm cycling Hogs, I need something to kill his support troops. So we go in, we are up at this point, but I reacted too slowly. I didn't manage to block the bridge from his baby dragon, and so we take some damage here. And I thought, honestly at this point, I thought, oh, I hope it's not game. I Fireball cycle, 19 seconds left, I have to defend. go for another cannon, go for my log on offense because one more fireball wins it. Evo Skelly's on defense, poison, fireball comes down, and 1 second more and I lose. GG's, what a ridiculously close game. So, on to the next game against SplashYard. I first cycle Skeletons, and then the reason I go Ice Golem Hog is because when you cycle Skeletons, I'm kind of just waiting to see if they also cycle cards, and usually if they're playing a cycle deck, they'll be cycling Ice Spirit, Skeletons, Goblins, something like that. If they don't play anything, it kind of means that they're running a heavy deck, and a lot of heavy decks run Tornado, so it's kind of a play that makes sense just to go for an Ice Golem Hog first play. You can't really get punished. So I've outcycled him, I go for my Ice Golem Hog, he reacts too late and goes for his Tombstone. Even if he had caught my Hog Rider, I was already hovering my log to instantly log it and would have gotten damage, so that's good. I log his Bomber and I log his Tombstone, and we're in a decent spot, but we're playing against SplashYard, you know, there's no such thing as a decent spot, unless you're like a full tower up. So I'm kind of just seeing, okay, I know that he just used his Tombstone, and I know that he also nadoed my Hog to the Tombstone. So both of his Hog counters are out of cycle. So I go Ice Spirit, Evo Skeleton's opposite lane to force something out. He already used his Bomber, so he had to go for a little Prince. And then whilst doing that, I go Ice Golem Hog in the left lane. I get a nice value Fireball. The reason I didn't go for King Tower against the Evo Bomber is because I just didn't think I could defend. You know, and I turned out to be right because he goes for Night Graveyard in the left, and even still I take some damage. Not too much, Skelly's last second, but overall we got more damage going for Ice Golem Hog than we took in return defending, so it was definitely the right play. You know, we are down Elixir though, so I have to be careful. But you can afford to be down Elixir because he doesn't have Graveyard. Without a Graveyard, he can't really punish me. He goes for a Tombstone 3 tiles from the bridge, and the reason Tombstone players play it like in that position is because it'll catch a Hog if I go in the left or the right lane. But it does mean that it's susceptible to a Musketeer snipe, or if you're running Little Prince, and the Prince can also snipe it. But now that his Tombstone is dead, all he has is Tornado, so I go Ice Golem Hog. It forces out a Nado and a bunch of other cards. He goes for Little Prince at the bridge, so I cannon snipe it, because I know that's going to be one of the most difficult cards to actually kill. Ice Spirit on defense, I kind of wanted the Musketeer to hit the Baby Dragon, but it's okay. I kite everything, and then I log right at the end. Bomber gets a hit and he gets poison damage, but we're still up 1000 damage, so I'll take it. I think that was about as well as I could have defended that. And the result is that now we're basically equal on Elixir. I'm only down a little bit. He goes for a Baby Dragon, I Musketeer, so it discourages him from going for a Graveyard. I go for, you know, Evo Ice Spirit, and he nados stupid Evo Bomber. Cannon up high just to DPS down the bridge. A lot of Graveyard matchups come down to, or a lot of SplashYard matchups come down to a bridge battle where you're trying to block the bridge, stop them going in for a Graveyard, because if they do, you can just cannon on defense, and they're trying to break through and overwhelm you by going in. So I go for a Hog Rider, which tanks the first Baby Dragon hit. Evo Skeleton's DPS down the Evo Knight. Cannon fully defends a naked Graveyard because the bridge was blocked. And that Hog that I used also got a hit on his tower. So now after fireballing, I'm only one fireball away. So I know that I have to block the bridge. I go for a log just to cycle, and I'm just Ice Spirit. I'm blocking the bridge so that if he goes for a Graveyard, nothing's tanking for it. And then I end the game with a final fireball. Really nice conversion and really nice game. This is a really tough matchup. Now, in this game, we're playing against Giant Graveyard, and this is, you know, another terrible matchup for 2.6, but you can definitely win it if you're good enough and if your opponent makes mistakes. So I go for a Hog Rider and he goes for a Night Witch. At this point, I'm already thinking it could be Giant Graveyard, but it also could be Elixir Golem. He goes for a Bowler, and I know almost 100% that this is Giant Graveyard. So I go for an Ice Golem Hog because I know that, okay, if he doesn't have Bowler, then what's he going to do to counter this? I log his Skami, and he has to go for a Night Witch. Go for a low Musketeer, and the Bowler dies. Doesn't get a hit on my tower, I think. No, it does get a hit on my tower. Damn, that sucks. I go for an Ice Spirit, fully counters. You know, I want to cheaply defend and not overspend. But, you know, we're up 800. I'll take it. He snowballs back my Musketeer, and I'm kind of just waiting to see, okay, Giant Graveyard, what is he going to do? Is he going to Bowler in the back? He's going to Giant in the back. Goes for a Giant in the back, and so I apply pressure opposite lane. He just dropped 5 Elixir, and he didn't have, you know, the best counters. Notice how I play my Ice Golem Hog. if you play them one in front of the other and they stick together, or the better word is coalesce, then the bowler will knock back both of them, but I purposefully made it so that they separated once they crossed the bridge, so that my tower would be hitting the Ice Golem and just the bowler would be hitting just my Hog Rider. So Evo Ice Spirit is perfect onto the bats. I go for, you know, a low Musketeer plus log, and we defend really well. You know, we did take some damage, but look at his tower. Way less. Bad Ice Spirit at the bridge, but the Evo Skeletons force out arrows. And we're looking great, you know. This is a good spot to be in. 1 minute left in the game. We can do this. We just need some good defense and a good offense. So I go for a Hog Rider, and you might be wondering, he has Scar Me. Why don't I go for a prediction log? When you're high up on ladder, like this is top 3,000. Actually, this is higher. This is the game that got me to 2,400. People expect you to go for hog prediction logs, and so actually what's unexpected is to not do that, because it would be like the bad play. And so I know that, right? So I go for that play instead, because if he goes for a Scar Me, okay, my hog doesn't get damage, boo-hoo. But you need to, you know, when you're higher up, these are the mind games that people play. And he lets my Musketeer go in the right side. Now don't ignore that, that's kind of important, because that then allows me to change lanes. Right, he also ignored a previous Musketeer of mine, and by changing lanes, it means that he has to respond to it. Because I'm not going into the bowler on the left, and I'm not, you know, he has a giant on the right. So if he goes for a graveyard, that's like 19... It's a lot of elixir on the field, and he can't defend. So that hog gets a lot of damage. I Ice Golem to bait out the bowler, right? He expects me to go for that. Here I should have prediction logged, but I decided just to Fireball because I went for a different strategy. If I just Fireball and cycle back to another Hog Rider, bowler's out of cycle, Scar Me's out of cycle, he has nothing. He can't even stop this. So even if he goes in for a graveyard, I win the game. And that's exactly what happens. GG's, and, you know, completely outplayed a hard counter. And finally, we're playing against Hog EQ. We both go for a Hog Rider at the bridge. Hog Rider Ice Spirit does not get any damage on the tower if you just play the cannon at the right timing in that placement. And already, once I see Hog Rider and Tesla, and Ice Spirit, I guess, but especially Hog Rider and Tesla, I know this is Hog EQ. So I'm playing accordingly. So, okay, split Skellies in the back, go for a log, I'm just cycling. I realize I've outcycled him. He's not playing any cards, I don't know why. So Ice Spirit, because I knew that he had skeletons in cycle. Because I know his deck, right? And then, I don't know, caught him sleeping. This guy wasn't cycling cards, whereas I was, even though we were pretty much equal in elixir, so looking good. Has a knight across the field, and I'm ready. So I go for my cannon trick to get the cannon outside of EQ range. Now here I made a slight mistake. I should have played my Musketeer a tile higher, because then the Firecracker would have targeted it, and I would have gotten King Tower. So here I took a Firecracker here, and I didn't get King Tower, so a bit of a misplay. But we're still up. I go for an Ice Spirit because I predicted skeletons, and that gets me nice Musketeer damage on the left. He ignores it because he's just trying to split his damage, but if I was him, I wouldn't do that, because then... If you don't want to do that too early on in the game. Goes for a Knight plus... he goes in just too aggressive. I go either Skeleton and I instantly Hog, because when he went for the Ice Spirit, I thought if he goes in for a Earthquake, then he won't have Elixir to defend. I know he'll go for Skeletons, and so I go for a Hog plus a Log. We get a ton of damage, and we're up. So far, we've completely outplayed him just by knowing what he has in cycle, and like making the correct plays accordingly, and punishing him when he overcommits. So going Knight Hog Rider is already, you know, 7 elixir. Then throwing in Earthquake and Ice Spirit, that's a total of 11 elixir. This guy had nothing. Goes for a Firecracker, and so I'm like, okay, I'm going to Musketeer same lane. I need to DPS this all down. Goes for a Hog Rider, so I cannon low. I go for a Fireball and an Ice Golem. Ice Golem so that the Knight is hitting something. And so that, you know, it's not in its, like, invincible mode of its shield. And then I Fireball, so it takes damage. Kill the Firecracker. Doesn't get any damage, so we're looking good. And here I'm like, okay, he's going to go in, and so I'm going to Hog Rider first. So if he goes for an Earthquake, would you look at that? Yet again, he doesn't have Elixir for a Tesla, and we punished him. We get Hog damage. 2 Hog hits is crazy, and we've basically already won the game. You know, we just punished him every time he overcommitted. I don't know what this guy was doing. I don't know how he's so high up. Maybe I'm roasting him a bit, but this was a bad game by him, I'll say that much. Again, we cannon trick. Cannon is outside of the Earthquake range. If you guys want me to make a video on how to do it, I can. But, you know, again, he goes for a low Tesla, and I just Fireball, Hog hit, log, GG's. That's the end of the video. If you guys enjoyed and if you learned something, please drop a subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.